our relationships, in our romantic relationships. So in this particular episode, we are specifically going to be focused on personality types. But before I get into that, I just want to say welcome, everybody. Welcome to Genevieve Queenum, who is one of our coaches here on the Eve Speaks team. Welcome, and thank you for joining.
Thank you, Angela.
We want to say for those who will join us either live or after the broadcast, please be sure to send in your questions, interrupt the conversation, make it lively, communicate. Today, it's really an important topic because this notion of, do you know your type? A lot of people are, they're after the mates, of the lifetime, their soulmate, and they think they have a type. But the thing is, the most important type for us to know is our type, like ourselves, really. Wouldn't you agree, Miss Genevieve Queenum? The important thing is for us to know our type, being ourselves, our own personality. And so we're going to dive into that a little bit tonight. And let me remind you that the Eve Speaks platform is here where we heal, aspire, and grow. So we are on a journey. We are enjoying the journey. The destination is a great idea, but the journey is also a critical part of this process. And without the process, there is no progress. This is why we come on here every week to talk about something that we think will help you on this journey.
Exactly.
So Genevieve, do you have any things that you want to share just to start us off?
Yes, I think that today we have an interesting topic because the other webinar we had, we were talking about the women who are faithful and single, but today I think that we want to go further and give them some practical tools.
Practical tools are very important. So one of the first questions I want to ask tonight is, what criteria, let me ask you, Genevieve, what criteria did you think you had when you thought you were ready for a relationship? And that's really important, when we think, because a lot of times I thought that I was ready for a relationship, but I really wasn't. And then I would romanticize the whole idea of having a relationship. He must be this and he must be that. And you imagine, this ideal person that really doesn't exist, but can tell me nothing back then. But the idea is that I want to ask you, Genevieve, what criteria did you think you had, or did you have when you thought, operative word, when you thought you were ready to be in a romantic relationship or for your potential date?
Well, one of my criteria was I'm very sensitive to gift. So yes, maybe
very sensitive to gifts. You like gifts?
Gift. Yeah, I like gift. So and what is it said in the the five criteria in the love language? Gift and word of affirmation.
Okay, so since you brought up the 5 love languages, let's talk about that for a little bit, because it's going to tie in with this idea of the types, the personality types.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the 5 love languages that has been researched, according to research, includes words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, which is the one that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Acts of service, and physical touch.
Physical touch.
So let's talk about yours, for example. Acts, what do you say, receiving gifts? So that means, I'm looking at the chart here. Receiving gifts, giving time, remembering special occasions, and giving small occasions. That's what you want.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. I'm very sensitive to that.
So when you met the guy, was he doing these things? Or did you think about it?
Yes. They all do it in the beginning.
They all do it in the beginning.
Exactly.
Oh.
So this is the things that I'm very sensitive to when I was looking for my husband.
Uh-huh.
And yeah. That was the point. And not only before I, even if it be before I have my husband, this is something that I'm sensitive to. I relate it to love, to respect, to knowledge of my friendship, of my presence, and
Mm,
this is my personality.
wow. And so did you, the chart says that you should, in terms of this idea of giving gifts, receiving gifts,
Hmm.
did you also want to give gifts or was it only
Yeah,
about you getting
yeah,
the gifts?
exactly. I'm very attached to everything that is symbolic. I liked it. So I love receiving gift, and I love giving gift too.
Okay.
So by the same time, what about you?
For me, it's, wow, I hadn't really given much time to thought to this, but what I do like though is quality time. I love to sit in a
Hmm.
restaurant and just, eat chicken wings,
Hmm. Okay.
eat chicken wings
Uh-huh.
and have Bacardi and Coke. Like, for example, I like intimate conversations. I don't like a lot of noise in the background and all that. I like
Okay.
intimate interaction and exchange, where I'm having soulful conversations, things that stir the soul.
Soulful conversation. Okay.
Um, and it was really important for me to know that about myself because I realized I liked it in my girlfriends, but I also wanted it in
Exactly.
the guy I was interested in. My husband was like that. And now that I think about it, we would go to these little spots and sit down and have chicken wings and Bacardi Coke. But it's so
Yeah.
important for us to know what we like. But before we move on, I just want to go over the five love languages. One of them again is the first one is words of affirmation, and that's the
Hmm.
idea that we like spoken words,
Exactly.
written with cards and letters. Do you like that too? I mean, that's
Yeah.
nice too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that older women love this
Older
part.
women. What is
Yeah.
the older woman thing? I
Yeah,
mean,
older women, because most of the time this is the problem of men. They are not talkative. And women will love word of affirmation, expressing your love with words, with poem, men's, most of the time, thinks that this is for women. you know.
actually, but that's totally true. But my husband actually likes this. The thing is, I don't really do it.
Wow.
But he did. He has expressed that he likes to receive written cards and notes and things.
Yeah.
And the communication aspect of this is encouraging words and compliments. So I do give him a lot of compliments though and affirm his spirit. But he likes the written things. And for a little while there, I was
Okay.
trying it, but it just doesn't feel,
The affirmation. Yeah, you see.
yes. And the thing to avoid if you love words of affirmation is to avoid emotionally harsh words.
Mhm.
Oh, I hate harsh words. Really kills my spirit. The next thing is quality time.
Mhm.
My husband he runs a lot of errands. He goes to the supermarket, but he doesn't like particularly taking other trips, but he loves to run errands and we'll do things together. We started going on walks together and sitting at home and talking. That to me, like sitting on the couch and just talking is really good. Uh, Going to quiet places with no interruptions all feeds into the same idea. Just that undivided attention and one-on-one conversation.
Exactly.
Things to avoid if you are about quality time, avoid too much, you know, time with friends or avoid a mate who wants too much time with his buddies or with
Hmm.
groups, or likes to isolate by themselves alone, and it takes a long time before he meets up with you again if you're dating him. If you
Mm.
notice those things, then probably that's not, you want to give attention to it because if it means a lot to you,
Mhm.
quality time, and the person is doing these kind of things, then there probably isn't a good fit.
Yeah.
The next thing is the receiving gifts, which Genevieve talked about. If you like to give gifts and get them, and you need to remember special occasions, and you want the person to remember special occasions, again, if that's important to you, the idea is to know what you are about, know yourself before you go expecting it from somebody else. And instead of romanticizing what this person is, you have a good grip on what is it that you really need. And of course, learning what that person needs as well. The thing to avoid though is materialism. Okay. I know women who feel like the guy must make over 6 figures and he must, he must own a business. It's not bad to want those things, but don't go overboard.
So this is for which language?
Receiving gifts. Those are the things to avoid. So while you may like to receive gifts, don't go overboard how much you want to, you want to be a travelisha, want to travel over the world all the time, and you want expensive bling and all of that.
Exact. It has to be managed with wisdom.
It has to be managed, yes. And then the next thing is acts of service. The next love language is acts of service. What do you think about this one, Genevieve?
I think my husband is exactly like this. This is his love language.
Oh, really?
Yes, he's someone who likes to, he helps you a lot in the house. And this is very important for him. For Mother's Day, he will, cook something, a big meal for you, go to the markets and cook, kind of, French, Italian meal for you. And, he's
how does that make you feel?
Well, I appreciate
but it's not your main love language. So do you really?
Endeavor. Yeah, exactly. I'm not a big eater. So, I'm not impressed by whatever meal it is, but I appreciate
you appreciate it because it's not your main love language. It doesn't really resonate in the same way. So he may think he's doing a great thing, but you're like, I would have preferred getting a nice bracelet.
Exactly. If he brings even, just a pen, which is written on the side to the best mom, I will be more sensitive to this small, pencil than to this whole meal. And, but I appreciate, the effort, but I had a sister who was very, very sensitive to that. She used to describe the ideal man as the one who will help her in the house and, cook and help with the kids. That was the man she was looking for, and this is not actually easy to identify when you don't live together again, Yeah.
But it's important that you said that, he's busy going to the market and making the big meal for Mother's Day. But what you really wanted was probably like a pen with a nice little saying on it or some other kind of gift. And I think that's what the disconnect is with a lot of dating, because we think that what we want is what the other person wants.
Exactly.
And even marriage,
even marriage,
what we want is what our partner wants.
Exactly. This is what brings the big breaks, the big gap between the couples, because unfortunately, most of the time, we don't express it clearly. Let's say that I won't, say to my husband, oh, okay, I will think about, this thing in my mind, but I won't dare, say, because I see the effort, I appreciate it, he put the tables and, say, okay, I have made chicken wings,
Made chicken wings?
Yeah, lemon chicken and, mushrooms and all this stuff,
that sounds good though.
Yeah, gastronomic meal. And everything smells good. The table is beautiful. I appreciate his effort, but you know what?
That's what you wanted.
It's not really what I will be, more impressed if I found, a gift to wrap somewhere. And I will say, what is inside? Yes, he think about it. He go and take something for me and wrap it. It's the same thing. Going to the market and cook, but this is what brings the big gaps, because the personality are very, very different. And this is why it is, our topic of today is so important. Most of the time we think that this man, he doesn't love me. He doesn't pay attention to me. He never, he never told me that he loves me. It is just that it is not his love language. It is not his personality. This is why it is important to know ourselves first. And when you know yourself, you may be more sensitive to how other people can be too.
Right.
And in fact,
That's important. That's important
yeah,
because I think that's why there's so much complaining in the blogosphere about relationships and people, men who are not providing and women who don't come to the table with anything, because
exactly.
each person needs to
Yeah,
communicate. First needs to know what themselves and then be able to
exactly.
communicate what is it that they need. But if we don't spend the time to explore ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
we don't know ourselves. So how are we going to
Exactly.
communicate it?
Exactly. It's just like
So
you
that's
buy a juicer and then you say, I don't know why, he cannot smash meat, because
get juicer to
you're
smash it.
asking me, you're asking to this about something that he's not, supposed to do. It is not
That is
his
so true.
characteristic. Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
last love language is physical touch,
Mm-hmm.
which means you want to be hugged, you want pats, you want touches, you want to be sitting close.
Mm-hmm.
That's important to me too. It's
Yes,
hard for me
to me too.
it's hard for me
I
to
think
decide which one is more important.
yeah, I think that we all have, maybe we can appreciate 3 or 4 of this love language, but each person have
A
something
dominant one, right?
that a dominant one. Yes, I also love, physical touch, but not that much because I'm a very busy person, so I don't always. Yes, I don't give much time to, hug and all this stuff. But my husband is like this too.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, physical touch. And when you're communicating, it also the facial expressions is also a way of expressing physical
Yeah.
touch, according to this research.
Yes. Having
Um,
a look at one another when you are in a party. This is some people are very sensitive to that. Just have a look at one another. Everybody is enjoying themselves, but you just look at your partner, and if you miss this, some people will say, "We come to the party and she forget me." You see, because they are
that's so
sensitive.
interesting
Yeah.
that you're saying that, because my husband observed a friend of ours, a couple friend of ours. We would go out with them, and we were at an event recently, and the wife was talking to everybody around, but her husband was just sitting there. And my husband turned to me and goes, "You see the way he's sitting there? That bothers him, Believe me, I'm a guy, I know that bothers him. But you need to speak to her about that, because, I've seen a pattern with her coming to events, and he's just sitting there by himself." And I was like, wow,
Mhm.
he noticed that. And sure enough, I did speak to the friend of ours, the wife, and she was just like, "But my husband doesn't talk." But then when she brought it to him, he said to her, "I've been wanting to tell you this for years, but I didn't know how to tell you." And I'm like,
Mm.
why wouldn't he tell you after all this time?
Yeah.
We don't know. The
That,
point is, though, that's important to him. That's his way of physical touch, for him to feel acknowledged, and that she's aware of his presence, and demonstrates it when she's there in the crowd. Very important. And
yeah.
all these years they've been married for like 17 years. He never told her, even though he's been feeling like this. But the fact that she was willing to take the advice that we gave based on our observation, and went back and spoke to him, she got the truth of how he really
Mhm.
feels. It could be that because he's a man, he doesn't want to say, "Well, I really need you to pay attention to me," or whatever it is. But yeah, he fessed up to it. So it's so important. Again, this issue of knowing yourself,
Exactly.
knowing what type of person you are, your personality type, the
Mhm.
needs that you have, so that then you can then know how to be more savvy
Exactly.
when you are looking for the potential date. And it will probably cut down on this idea of being faithful, single, and struggling. If we knew better what to
Mhm.
look for and what to expect and how to communicate our needs.
And how to
So
communicate. Yeah.
we're gonna kind of shift a little bit now to talk more about the personality. So why don't you give us a little idea of Genevieve about this idea of the personality traits from John Maxwell research, the DISC method.
Exactly. So you see, you just say that this man has this issue with his wife for years and were not able to talk with her about that.
Mhm.
This is exactly a deeper analysis of the behavior of this man that could help, the wife, if she knew that this is the personality of my husband, and
Right.
maybe help this couple years before. And this is why knowing your personality, as you say, is important. And so many people will say, yes, it's very important to know my personality, but what can I do? So today, many companies, most of the time it is companies, because it is very useful, for recruitment, for promotion, to put the right person to the right place for the right task. And they use, some method. So the DISC method is a very known method, and many companies has their own method. And today we're gonna talk about the Maxwell DISC method, because
The
this
DISC
is
method. Please show it on the screen so we can show it to the audience.
exactly.
Oh.
So this is the Maxwell DISC method. And in all the DISC, you have the description of the four type of personality. Okay, we have the DISC is an acronym. The acronym, the D stand for dominant, the I for influencing, the S for steady, and C for compliant. So each kind of personality, has a dominant aspect. We see that, in the top of this diagram, you have the D and the I, and you have just on the top outgoing. That means that these two type of personality are outgoing people. They like interaction. They like discussing. They are not afraid to express themselves. So maybe this husband should be in the lower side of the diagram. Maybe he is someone who is reserved.
Oh.
And even not people oriented. Some people are like this. Some people are very outgoing. They are easy to talk and to express themselves and to go, meet people and, talk about their decision, take decision. Some others are not like this.
Okay.
And you have on the side task oriented and people oriented. That means that the D and the C are people who are very task oriented. Okay, they at the opposite there you have the I and the S, who are very people oriented. So the people oriented style are people who are very sensitive to interaction, communication. They are better with people. They can work with people. They understand people. They like to be around people. In the opposite, the other side, the D and the C, they better stay.
Just like to get things done.
Yes, they better stay with the task. Don't, if you want. That's why most of the time you will see that a D or a C or an I and S, they will be more motivated by this kind of job, this kind of education, this kind of friends and all this stuff, and it's different. But what we have to know is that nobody is just one type. We all are blended of this three or two sometimes. We are all a blended style of personality.
So this is important to highlight the fact that nobody is one type. Exactly. We are a blended type. However, there is a dominant trait. Exactly. And that's what we want to pay attention to in this jungle of dating, right?
Exactly. This is yeah. This is really the first step of our webinar of today, to see that we are all a blended style and we have a dominant trait. So it can be, your dominant trait can be I, or it can be C, like me, and I am high C and I, and it can be a dominant. You can be a high D or a high S, and each kind of personality will have we can describe how they react, how they interact with people, what are their biggest fear, what motivates them, what kind of communication, what kind of word, even the simple word you should avoid with, distance. For example, when you have a high D, if you want to communicate with a high D and to hook this person in your conversation, you should start by the fact and go straight to the point.
Straight, start with no small talk.
Exact.
I
when
hate
you
small
talk,
talk.
yeah, when you talk with a high I, you should start by asking them, how do they feel?
Mm.
How about their family? How do they spend the day?
Oh, how was your trip? All these things.
Yeah.
All the
How do you
fuzzies.
enjoy? Yeah. How do you enjoy this sunny day? You know, when you
In
have
my head,
to
I'm thinking, I
elaborate.
could care less. Just get to the point.
Yeah, exactly. So, for example, something simple like you will talk with a C or a D and an I and an S, and even the way you ask them question matters. For example, when you ask a question to a S, you have to you have to take in account all the environment, offer them a secure picture.
Mm.
If not, they get immediately close if they don't feel secure, if they don't have enough, point that can tell them that they can go in this, they are reserved person. They are people oriented and reserved.
People oriented and reserved. Okay.
At the opposite, a D, you can, there are people who can take risk. They can take
Mm.
decision. They are not afraid to take decision. The I are the same thing. They are influencing. You can let them with people, even very difficult people. They know how to talk, how to interact with people, how to, to connect with people. This is the principal asset of the I. They know, they master the connection in interaction, which is not at all the asset of a C, but they know how to get things done properly.
So the C is compliant. Exactly what does that mean? They're compliant.
Okay,
They get along with everybody. They get along they go along and get along. Is that it?
They are reserved and task oriented. So
Okay.
the high C are reserved and task oriented. They like to have things done in details. They love working with the details. They need to have the details. They are accurate people.
Okay.
Yeah,
So let's shift this a little bit now. Now tell me, I mean, now I'm thinking about how it's good to understand, yes, for sure, this chart, but then how does this map to relationships? I mean, if I am a dominant personality and a high I influencing personality, but I get attracted to a compliant personality who's focused on, task oriented. What could be the problem, or what could be an issue? Because that we like to say opposites attract, right? Is it really true?
Exactly right.
Is that really true? Does it really work long term?
Yeah, that's why many of the family coach now use the DISC method to help the couple understand each other. And even sometimes they use it with their teenager because, sometimes it's important to know how my child function. It's just like sometimes these kids come without the
So
shit
it's not
inside.
so much that it won't work, is that if both parties are aware of the dominant characteristics of the other, then they can meet the need. It's not that if I'm dominant, I can't potentially fall in love with somebody who's an S, who's just steady. But the idea is that we both know ourselves enough so that when we come to the table, we come educated and aware of how we are to interact. Is that the idea?
Exactly. This is the idea. You can fall in love with whoever you want. And the better is to know, because, as I told you, nobody is a one trait. You will, maybe it can exist, but I never see it in any graphs. So to see someone who is only a D, because people change, in different situations, they can have, some people are, my personality literally change when I am in front of the public and when I am inside, because I'm a kind of reserved. So
Mhm.
I'm more talkative when I'm, with people I am used to, my family, my coworkers, and so on. So because this is
Okay.
one of my personality type. But to answer to your question, for example, I'll try to explain, for example, the tendency behavioral of, let's say, a high D. So
Mhm.
let's say that the sign of a high D is that they are productive.
I lost. Say that one more time. We lost you for a little bit.
I say that uh, we can, for example, talk about the behavioral tendency of a high D. That means that you can have the other traits, one or two other traits of the disc, but your dominant point is the D. Let's say the
Mhm.
dominant trend. And when you are a high D, for example, your strength is that you are productive, you are decisive, okay, you are a
You're
practical person.
productive, decisive. If you're ID, you're
Exactly.
productive and decisive. And what
Exact.
else?
General, yeah, that they are visionary and they are very courageous. Okay,
Visionaries and
and
courageous.
courageous.
All positive things.
Yes, there's some other thing, but this is the
They're all positive until you get paired with the person that is not those things, and you're not aware that it's not there's anything wrong with the person. It's just that you guys are not educated on each other's strengths and each other's
exact.
type, so it becomes a major conflict,
Yeah.
point of conflict.
Yes, let's say that, for example, for the high D, the tendency will be in the more negative view will be that they will maybe sometimes appear like unsympathetic and cold,
Mm,
or sometimes they can look like people unforgiving because they are very decisive, so it
very
can be
decisive.
taken, yes, in a good side. But let's say, for example, that you are a high D and your spouse is a high S, the real opposite, you know but the high S, for example, is dependable. Okay, they are conservative and practical people. They are low key personality. That's mean that they are not people who wants to
Rule the world.
decision, yes, exact, over everything. So they are quiet, you know, and they are very efficient and organized. So they
Okay.
take time to think about everything, and when they think about things, when before they take a decision, a high S, for example, will take in account the people, how the people around me will feel, what they will think about me, which is not the case of a dominant.
Mm,
A dominant is a task oriented.
they just
Okay,
go.
just go, yes, and so it's the same thing. If you are a high I, for example, you are very people oriented and you are outgoing. You see how this I, the part of the diagram, the high is outgoing and people oriented. So
Right.
imagine a high with a C who is reserved and task oriented. They need details. They want to do things, they are very organized people, they are accurate, and the I, they just talk.
I'm telling you, and this is not only in romantic relationships, because I remember I had a friend who's an architect come to
Yeah.
my house, and she was, we wanted her to look at the yard to see because we wanted to build an extra shed, and
Mhm.
she was going through all the details of and I was just like, oh my gosh, no, just make a decision. I don't want to know about all of that.
Yeah.
And she
So you
kept
might,
going on to the details, and I kept getting irritated.
yeah, they are very
And I'm
good
like,
in
I don't
some.
care about all that. Just tell me what needs to be done, and let's do it.
The high
But
C are
she
very good.
insists on, and she
Yeah.
wasn't catching that I was getting irritated because I
No,
really don't want to know all of that.
they are, for
Can
example,
you imagine being
ideal.
married to somebody or being dating somebody with those? After a while, you'll just get real irritated and you start to push each other away because you're like, you're getting on my nerves.
Exactly. Because
So that's why it's so important. Somebody in the audience, Chanela, she asked, what if one of the person have none of these qualities? How do you deal with those individuals? Is that possible to not have any of these qualities?
No, 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 it's not possible at all. We don't have enough time to discuss all the personality type. But let's say, for example, that someone can ask, okay, how can I know what's my blended personality type? So you have to make an assessment of it can be something like 50 questions that you have to answer in one sitting, 7 or 10 minutes, and then you receive a report result of 30 or 31 page.
Mhm.
So in this report you will have all the detail of your true personality type.
So that's really important because it endorses and reinforces the importance of taking the time to invest in self-development and in your growth journey. And you just said that in order for you to really get a better picture of your personality type, there's an assessment that you have to sit down that we will facilitate for you here on the Eve Speaks platform. You take this questionnaire, you complete it, and then we can talk to you more in depth about your personality type, how it may be impacting the different areas of your life, not just your dating, even though tonight we're talking about, single, faithful, single, and struggling. We also talk about your career. We talk about your own personal development with your parenting and your other relationships, not just romantic relationships. So the idea is for you to invest the time, and that's the part where people want to overlook. And then when they find themselves in the pit, whether it be a bad relationship or going from one bad relationship to the next bad relationship, then they give up and say, "Oh no, men are no good," or "Women are no good," because they didn't take the time to see the importance and the relevance of learning about their personality type themselves. This is a worthy conversation to have. It cannot be underrated or understated, because if I know that my personality type is to be dominant and to be influencing, that's where I think I lean towards. So if I don't know myself and know that about myself, I would have flipped out on that architect that came to my house. Okay. I mean, because she was just insistent on all those details. So I just want to encourage our listeners to understand the importance of coming to the table. This conversation is really to get you to come to the table to discuss further, because there's no way we can assess your personality type tonight. We're going to follow up with other shows where we're going to discuss it in more detail and provide you a link so you can take the test, and we can talk about your specific personality type and how it may be impacting your romantic endeavors.
Yeah, I understand the question of Shanella, because most of the time people think that this is a method. Some people even say, "Are you sure that you can describe my personality with this method?" But they are all, very surprised when they receive the report, because they're going like, "What how can you know myself at this point?" And what we have to understand is that the DISC is not, a recent method at all. It's not a recent at all. It's an evoluted method. And we can talk about it in detail the next time. Actually, we can see that the first disc have been, released, 444 years before Christ. They had what they call earth, air, fire, and water to describe the 4 type of personality.
Really? Before Christ, they had this research?
Exactly. It started with, this ancient wise man that his name was Empedocles. He is the one who started with the description of the people behavior, personality His name was Empedocles, and it was the first disc was describing the personality as, air, earth, air, fire, and water. And then after we had another, it's evolved to another method where the four personality was the choleric, sanguine, phlegmatic, and melancholy. I actually also learned this method when I was at school. Okay.
I've heard
And
about
then,
these methods too.
yeah. And then after Carl Jung, in 1921, start evolve again with this method and find the thinking person, the feeling person, the sensation, and the intuition. Okay. And it is in 1926 that William Marston finally worked on this method, which is, so the Maxwell disc method is based on the William Marston method, which is the dominant, influence, steadiness, and compliance. But
Well, thank you for
just
the
to,
history lesson there.
yes,
Very important to have the
just to
context and
reassure,
the
yeah,
background.
Chanela, yes.
Oh, Judith is asking the question. Judith Ortiz wants to know if it's possible for someone to have all of these personalities but not be a schizophrenic individual. That's a funny question. Is it possible to have all these personality types, the D, the I, the C, and the S, and not be schizophrenic? Is it possible?
Yeah, for sure. You don't need to be schizophrenic. I think that, yes, you can have I don't see yet someone who have the 4, but this 3 is possible because I actually have 3 personality type. I am a high C and a high D and a high I and a D, but I'm a very low S. Okay. But everyone has a dominant tendency. Everyone. The only way to know it is to have the test, the assessment.
Yes,
I have to mention
Judith, I would encourage you to take the test.
Yes, there are some free tests on the internet, but they are not complete. Yeah, they come with 6 or 8 questions. That can help. But it will just help you. In a
surface way.
To know maybe few traits of your personality, but the assessment will provide more insightful information about
and more in depth.
Yeah.
And we need something comprehensive, right? Because the jungle of dating is so vicious that we can't like sleep on it, right? We have to be very assertive and proactive because it's a cesspool out there in the blogosphere, on the internet, about all the reasons why relationships are failing and what the man wants versus what the woman wants, and how the women are gold diggers and the men are dusties, and it's horrible. And I think a lot of it is because people haven't taken the time, again, to invest in this worthy conversation and to do some core self-development work. Chanela says the reason why she was asking about what if, the question she had asked initially was, what if the person has none of the qualities? And she said the reason she's asking is because she knows someone who seems to have none of these personality traits, or those types, and she doesn't display any of them. And her reason is that she's a hurt soul. And over the years, she has gone through enough, so there's no need to be any of those. I don't think it works quite like that, Chanela. She may be hurt, but does that mean that she wouldn't have any of these traits?
I think that no, it's not possible. I think that Chanela, needs to have more, maybe more details behind each personality, because what we have on the screen tonight is really a big, it's just an indication, but it's not at all the description of the personality. Let's say, for example, I will give some example. I will take, for example, the Heidi. Okay. What the assessment will help you to know, you will be able to identify your strength and your limitation. Okay. Your relational characteristic. How do you behave in relation? So maybe this
Mm.
person is someone, who are a special blend, because there is also something which is important. The D personality and the I personality are the D personality is, I think, around 11% of the population are dominant D.
11% of the population is dominant?
Around, yes. I don't want to give, wrong percentage, but just to let you know that the higher percentage of people in the population are the S,
Steady?
steady, followed by the I. So even because of that, someone who is a high D may be someone who will feel most of the time uncomfortable with people because they are so task oriented, they are so decisive. And most of the time, what do you see? People are more steady. They want to have warranty, because before doing this one, they want to take time, especially in the world where we are today. Many people are in their public self, they are steady because they are always, they want to have they want to be
They want
comfortable,
guarantees?
assured. Yes, they want more guarantees, and we all have, I'm sure that we all have a kind of high personality, because even if you don't have it, you will develop it, but this
Because we're
is
all always influencing somebody. It's just the degree to which we
exactly.
do it, right?
Exactly. Even if you don't have, let's say that when you see, for example, occupational characteristic of a D, okay, if you take a high D and let's say that your son is a high D, and you want to, register him in some boot camp or summer camp and this and this, and you may feel like that, well, my son, he is a little bit, empathical. He doesn't want to stay with people. He is like this and this. But in fact, that his occupational characteristic are, he is goal oriented. If you bring him somewhere where he's not challenged, he won't feel comfortable. He will find it childish, actually. You see? So they are organized and they seek practical solution.
Right.
So my son is a little bit like this. He always have short answer. Because
and the more you talk about it, the more I see the need to have more conversations around this, because
yeah,
it's so deep, and and it's so much to explore, and especially in this area of dating and finding a potential mate, which is on the minds of so many. I mean, people are leaving the country. There's this whole movement called the passport bros. They're leaving the country because they're feeling that the women in America are just, not the women. But the truth is, they just don't know how to communicate with the women of America, and vice versa. And the women of America feeling like those guys are just don't meet up to their standards. And a lot of it is material. They think about material things. And I find that when people haven't done the work, all they focus is on the material things. But there's so much that goes beyond the material, because I can tell you that I've been married for 17 years and we do pretty well, because I own a business. My husband works on Wall Street, and we can just say, oh, life is, it's all done now because we are taken care of. We're good. But it's so not true. This relational aspect on learning his dominant traits and his, the secondary traits, and how it relates to me, and how we manage our household and the dynamic with our children. I mean, it's huge. And it also speaks to why there's such a great level of divorce, because even when we do get together, if we don't understand this and we're not constantly learning about ourselves, we can't sustain relationships. And that's how critical it is. It's like, it's the equivalent of baking a cake and leaving out the butter or the eggs. I mean, you're just gonna flop. So it's already 9:51. If there are any more questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. But I'm just gonna wrap up by saying thank you for joining. Remember that on the Eve Speaks platform, our goal is to heal, aspire, and grow. And so we discuss a variety of topics to help each other to continue on this journey to do just that, heal, aspire, and grow. And so since January, we've been talking about being single, faithful, single, and struggling. And we also talk about self-care for the soul on some other weeks. So feel free to join us, and we look forward to hearing from you. Our team of coaches is ready, willing, and able to have a personal consultation with you to kind of take this conversation more personal as it applies to you. And we really look forward to hearing from you. So thank you again for tonight. It's 9:52.
Thank you.
We're going to wrap it up now. I don't see any more questions. But thank you, Michelle, for joining, and Patricia and Shanella and Judith. Very glad to have you, and thank you for being interactive. Have a great evening, ladies.
Yes,
And
thank
we'll talk
you.
next time.
Thanks for joining, and have a great evening.